Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Overruled. I would like to introduce my guest today, MrZed. MrZed, how are you doing today?
Doing well. Appreciate you letting me on this growing platform of yours.
Barely growing, but still growing. I know that some people are here specifically to see MrZed, and I understand. Someone who calls themselves a friend of mine specifically told me.
Thank you, sir. I know who you are.
That he will be in the chat today only because MrZed is cooler than I am, which is probably true. Not going to lie. So today, the reason why I'm having you on today is because we have a thing in our friend group, I would say, where you're either a Killdozer person or a Sky King person. We're going to do Sky King in August too, by the way. But, and one of my best friends is a Sky King person, and you always claim that you're a Killdozer person.
Yes.
So
correct.
he has got the shirt on and everything. So I am a Sky King type of person. Have you guys heard of Killdozer? Do you know what I'm talking about? Does anybody else know what I'm talking about besides me? Probably. He knows. So I want to introduce you guys to a gentleman named Marvin Heemeyer. Marvin was born in South Dakota on October 28th, 1951. And he was in the Air Force. He was an Air Force veteran. Do you see this? He can't put his phone down for an hour.
Hey, my audience is talking to me, so I'm responding, all right?
All right. So Marvin was born in South Dakota, Air Force veteran. I know different branches of the military like what do you say to people that are in the Air Force when you meet
we
them?
call them blueberries.
Blueberries.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Pray tell.
They just look like a big blueberry. Their uniform is blue from top to bottom. And,
Okay.
it's all in fun.
Okay. He was a successful welder. Actually, people in his area said that he was the best welder in town. I guess that is a skill that you can possess, and you make a lot of money doing it. So have you considered becoming a welder?
I have considered learning how to weld throughout my life, and I've done a little bit, but nothing where I would be proficient at it.
No, yeah, he was apparently like best of the best. He could do anything, which we'll see. His last project that he worked on, he did a pretty darn good job on. But he was a great welder, and he owned several like welding and muffler businesses, like muffler shops throughout the Colorado area. He actually moved to Grand Lake, Colorado. Let me pull up the map. You guys know how I like the maps. So he moved to Grand Lake, Colorado, which is up here. And why is it not letting me zoom? Okay. So Grand Lake, Colorado is here, and it's a beautiful area of the country. which you'll see here in a second. It's just gorgeous here. He went up here for vacation and ended up loving it so much that he moved. He decided to take a break from his muffler business. He leased out the shop to the manager actually leased the space from him for 6 months it was supposed to be, and he went on vacation to Grand Lake, this beautiful area of the country, and he ended up staying there. So he bought a cabin in Grand Lake and he lived there. But in 1992, he bought a piece of land, 2 acres, in Grandby, which is down here. Okay. So his friends, he had lots of friends. He was an avid snowmobiler. Every Thursday, he would close the shop and go snowmobiling with this group of friends. They would go every Thursday during the winter. He loved winter sports.
Yeah, something that a lot of people don't realize is up in that area, due to how steep that snow gets, snowmobile riding is huge, like massive. And he led his group of friends, but at the same time, he always outfitted his friends' snowmobiles with this modified bumper, because the snow would get deep. You'd end up running into trees and busting up your snowmobile. He actually would modify this bumper onto these snowmobiles, and you weren't really part of the group until you got one of Marv's bumpers.
He never got married. He didn't have any kids, but he did have a girlfriend. And I think this girlfriend might be one of the, you know how they say there's like a straw that breaks the camel's back? So he had a lot of stuff going on in his life, and his girlfriend was one of those things that was going on in his life. Okay, so he's living in Grand Lake, and while I'm talking about this, I'm just going to put a little footage out in the background just to play while I talk, because it's a lot of talking in this one and not a lot of videos. So I'm just gonna let this play in the background while we talk about it.
My new ride right there.
Yeah. Yeah. Spoiler alert, this is what happens at the end of the story. So he's living in Grand Lake, and he's got a friend that wants to open a muffler shop in Grandby, and asks Marv, hey, could you look for some land for me to open this muffler shop? So Marv finds this 2-acre piece of land and finds out they wanted $110,000 for it, but finds out that it's going to go up for auction like 2 weeks later. So he's like, thanks, I'll wait for the auction. And he's going to buy this piece of land and then lease it back to his friend to open this muffler shop on. Long story short, the friend falls through because of some EPA stuff. There was some sort of chemical spill there previously that had to be cleaned up, and the friend is like, that's too much for me. So Marv opens his own muffler shop on this land. So he goes to the auction, and we know about this because we actually got our house at auction. It was a foreclosure, and we bought it. So we could have bought it ahead of time for more money, and we ended up, I think we saved like $15,000.
Between 15 and 20, yeah.
Yeah. So it's not always better to go to the auction. It could end up you get outbid or whatever, but sometimes it works out. It worked out for us. Marv thought it worked out for him, but what happened is the person whose land it was previously was a guy named Cody Dochev, and he was trying to purchase his land back from the government because it was foreclosed on piece of property. So he goes to the auction and he's bidding, and then this guy starts bidding against him, and so he bid more and more and more, and then Marv ended up, I'm going to call him Marv. I've listened to his manifesto 3 times this week. I feel like we're on the first name basis with him. So he ends up getting it for $42,000, which is a better deal than the 110.
Correct. Math, her strong suit.
Exactly. Cody Dochev, none too happy about this. He has some words for Marv after the auction. He goes up to him, gives him a piece of his mind, and keep in mind, Grandby is a small town, and let's see. In 1992, it had 1,132 people living there. So it's a very small, tight-knit community.
My nephew's graduation had more than that.
Yeah. So he's inserting himself into the small mountain town. So not only is it a small community, it's a secluded community. They are at 7,900, almost 8,000 feet above sea level.
The curvature of the earth.
Yeah. Above sea level. They're surrounded by mountains. It's a very small town. They basically, their city government, they don't care about the state government or the national government. They don't care about other people's rules or laws. They make their own rules. They just don't give a crap.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing.
No.
If you're involved in a small community like this, which is something that I personally want to get involved with, that's great.
MrZed is starting his own compound. There'll be a sign-up sheet at the end.
But when you are an outsider moving into a place like this, you almost have to tread lightly until you become one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, exactly. And that's what happened. Cody Dochev was not happy. His partner, Gus Harris, was also at the auction with him. Gus Harris was funding Cody to get this 2 acres back. Just as Marv was funding for his friend that ended up falling through. But Marv had the money. Marv was willing to spend $66,000 is what he brought with him to the auction. So he was ready to even go higher than that. Cody and Gus did not bring that much money with them. So like I was saying, it's a small mountain town, and Cody was friends with a lot of people who had a lot of important jobs in a small town government.
A lot of influence.
Yes.
You'd call that a political influence.
Yes. He's definitely an influence. He was a prominent businessman in the community. Okay, so Marv. Oh, I thought my video stopped. It's the footage. It's not me. This is actually the footage. It's not my computer this time. Like 2 months ago, I would have thought it was my computer. Marv cleans up the property to build his muffler shop, and he builds a large storage shed. There's already a like the actual muffler shop with the garages, like 3 bay garage or muffler shop there, or it was a car garage, but he's going to use it as a muffler shop. He builds this big shed that he's going to rent out as boat storage is his plan. I forgot I have to mute your mic too. If I don't want them to hear me cough.
It was too late.
It was too late. Yeah. So this whole time, Marv cleans up the place, builds this large storage shed, and Cody Dochev is still bothering him because he's trying to build this concrete plant in this area, and he wants to buy the property from Marv. So Marv says, well, I've done a lot of work here. I've built the storage shed. It's a money-making thing. So I'll sell it to you for $250,000. And according to Susan Dochev, which is Cody's wife, I believe, Cody agrees to this. I will buy it for $250,000. And then Marv's like, nope, I changed my mind. The price is now $375,000. And then, so Cody's like, okay, all right, well, I'll get it for that then. And then he changed his mind again and said, no, it's gonna be $1 million. And then that's when the negotiations basically stopped. So it seems like Marv was kind of
on the top of it. It looks like he's kind of an Indian giver. Back where I come from.
Are you allowed to say that anymore?
Yes, I am. Just a little bit though. Anyway,
just you're allowed to say that a small percentage.
just a small percentage. I think I'm done for the rest of the show on that one. But you got to remember, this is hearsay between two people, and one of them is no longer here to actually give their side of the story.
Sure.
Outside of his little manifesto.
Actually, neither of them are still here.
Right. So, and you're hearing it from his wife.
Yeah.
So,
and we all know how wives are. Am I right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so negotiations fall through the whole thing. So now Marv really has the town upset with him. He's got Cody and Gus upset with him, the guys who are trying to start this concrete plant. He had cleaned up the... Okay, sorry. I got to get the map up so I can show you guys.
Katie and her maps.
I really like, I do. Geography's my jam. Move this over so I can see what I'm showing you. Okay, so this right here, this little L, this is Marv's property, or what was Marv's property right here. And then this big L around it is the concrete plant. This is the muffler shop, and then this is that boat storage is back here. This is actually the shed here is where the Killdozer was built, this one. So in 2001, the city council, this concrete plant was not here. This was just all open land when Marv bought this property. So there was access to this main road. This is the main drag in Grandby. He had access to that road this way, but when Cody purchased this property that surrounds his property, Cody's like, you no longer have access to that road. So this road here that it looks like the muffler shop is on is like a dirt road. Here, I'll show you guys. It's
and that's a key point right there.
Not great. This is the only other access is this dirt road. So all of a sudden, Marv's losing tons of business.
Correct.
And Cody loves it.
If you pull up that again, you'll see that because he used to have access to that main road, he loses an easement that is going to be vital later on. Exactly.
So he had, and I mean, he was basically using it for 9 years. You would think there'd be some sort of squatters' rights in order there, but I guess not.
No, not when the new person comes in and buys the land.
Yeah.
I mean, if he would have fought it right off the bat, maybe, but also you got to remember that Cody had a lot of influence with the rest of the actual
sure did.
townsfolks.
Yep. So in 2001, the city council approves the construction of the concrete plant and rezone the land next to Heemeyer's place for that use. Marv had been using the land for 9 years as cut through to the main road, now cut off by the new concrete plant being built by none other than Cody Dochev, Marv's arch nemesis. Also, the other thing was apparently when you're welding, dust is not good to have around. No. I've never welded anything.
You want a fairly clean environment. Growing up in Arizona, down in Phoenix, you get a lot of dust there. So when you are welding, you want to close up wherever you're welding at so that you don't get the particulates into your welds, because it actually makes them weak. And with a concrete plant, that's a lot of foreign matter that's in the air. So he would pretty much have to close off his entire shop while he was welding and run different types of filtration systems in order to keep all that dust out.
Well, and that's another thing is when this was going through the town council to get approved for the use of a concrete mixing plant, Cody was saying things like, we're going to build a wall and we're going to have some sort of water to keep the dust down, all of this stuff. And it never happened. None of this stuff happened. So he got the plans approved that would limit the dust and then just never did any of that stuff. He didn't really care. Cody seems like a great guy. Marv hired a lawyer to try to stop the concrete plant from happening. He opposed it. He I guess appealed their decision.
Correct.
And so this was going back and forth, him trying to stop it, Cody trying to get it started. It was supposed to be that no construction could start until all of the appeals were exhausted, and it was like a go-ahead. But Cody didn't care about that and started pouring concrete for the buildings on the concrete mixing plant before the appeals had even been done. Before they just started building. Let me play for you. I did a little something. Like I said, I listened to Oh, I missed one. I forgot to play this one too. Okay, I'm going to play you two things right now because I forgot to play the first one. And even though I have it clearly listed in my notes to play it at a certain spot, I just breezed right through that because I like talking a lot. So we're going to introduce you to Marv right now, and then also Marv talking about Cody.
Hello, my name is Marvin Heemeyer. Today is, let's see here, April 13th, 2004. I am making this tape. I thought I should make it a year ago. Made part of it. Didn't like it. Really didn't think it'd make any difference if I did make it, but a good friend of mine said I should make it. He said I should sit down in front of a videotape machine and do it, but you're just going to have to take my word that this is Marv Heemeyer, serial number 503-689-471. And I'm living in Grand Lake, Colorado. And this tape is about my life since I come up here to Grand Lake in 1991.
All right, and then here's Marv talking about Cody.
Oh, this Dochev guy owned 5 acres right there by the gravel pit. He could have put it there. He didn't need to rezone anything. He could have put it right there. But he, this guy had this hard on for me that for 10 years that he was going to get even with me. And he said this in so many words on more than one occasion. And anyway, well, he was doing it. That's whatever, I'm fighting for my life here because this is my future. This is my retirement. I need to get this stopped.
All right, so that's a little taste of Marv. And as you can see, he was basically at his wit's end. I want to play some more clips from that shortly. Life to the Max is asking if he gave his social security number. I'm not sure if that was his. MrZed just answered you in the chat. I was going to say I thought it was his military number, but it could have been his social.
It's a military serial number that he gave, and they quit going by that. I think it was right after Vietnam and started using social security numbers.
Do you know that you don't have to chat? You can just talk this time?
Well, I don't want to interrupt you. So
when is that ever the case?
Touche.
Okay, so the plans get approved for the concrete plant. Marv's digging his heels in, and almost immediately after the construction is being done on this concrete plant, the city council decides to tell Marv that he has to be on the city sewer system. Up until now, he had a septic tank, which is perfectly normal thing to have, especially for a business. You would think there's not a lot. It's not like somebody's house. You would use more sewage, I would think, than
right. And
the business.
When he first bought the property, there was no one around him. There was nothing else. So being on a septic tank or a septic type system was perfectly acceptable.
Yeah.
And now that he's got people around him that are friends with the local government, they're trying to make his life more difficult, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, exactly. So they fine him $2,500 for not being on the city sewer or septic system. After the rezoning went through, this was one of the requirements, because not only did they rezone that property for the concrete plant, they also rezoned his property, which he could still use as a muffler shop, but, you know, he had to be on the city sewer because of the rezoning. Also, there was something about spot zoning where it was technically illegal at the state level to do the spot zoning the way the city council was doing. But they did not seem to give one single crap about it.
Yeah, when he brought it up to the state level, they pretty much just kind of ignored him because he was a one-off and it was not necessarily worth their time, and he wasn't going to put the money that they were looking for to actually fight any of this. So
yeah,
they just kind of ignored him, and he felt slighted on that as well.
Yeah. So in order to run the sewer line, let's zoom in a little more. As you can see, this is the concrete plant. This is Marv's place. The sewer line was along this road back here and along this main road. So in order to get to this main sewer line, he would have to run a sewer pipe from his business here all the way back to this road, or ask Cody for an easement to cut through. Same thing with the road, to cut through to this main road here. From his place all the way back here is over 500 feet from his land to the sewer line. And he would have to pay not only for the materials, but the labor, like the whole thing, the whole thing, the months of work that it would take in labor, plus all of the materials and all of that to hook up to the city sewer line. The rough estimate for that was about $80,000. The city's telling them, oh, by the way, we're going to fine you every day until you get this done, because of the new zoning. You have to be on the city sewer. And so he's obviously going to appeal this. So he appeals it to the Grandby Sewer District Board, who is headed by a guy named Ron Thompson. Remember that guy's name, because by the end of the story, his home and business will no longer exist. Spoiler alert. Ron Thompson was a friend of Cody Dochiff's and also the brother of the mayor of the town of Grandby. So when I say this was like a good old boys club, this was like
very incestuous, as
very
far as
all intermingled. They all know each other. They all, I believe, knew what they were doing to Marv. Personally, I think they did. Now, I mean, they may have been going to be doing that anyways. I'm not sure. But I think that if it was one of their boys who had bought that land, it probably would not have shaken out this way. What do you think?
I think there's a little bit more to it. And I've got an opinion on the back end of it once we go through the entire story. Okay.
So you did more research than just watching that documentary with me this week?
A little bit.
I'm impressed. I didn't think you did.
No, I've also looked into it prior to you doing this. So.
Okay. All right. So his appeal was denied about the sewer line, and they start imposing daily fines of $100 a day until he gets the sewer line hooked up. So this is the board, the city council board, or the city council and the board of the Grandby Sewer District basically are just totally shutting him down. And here's what Marv has to say about these people.
I'm not really sure how that all worked, but this maintenance easement was a pretty big obstacle. And they basically told me, the board did, in the fall of '92, that I would never have water and sewer there until I got this maintenance easement from this Gus Harris guy. Well, I was a little upset because, he was Bud was a superintendent, and this was I thought this was a done deal. So, I left the meeting, and I didn't need to listen to any more of their crap. They wasted a lot of my time. And, I knew that there was some animosity in the community. I had been getting my hair cut down at this place called Lana's, and she had told me about how this Cody Dochev guy had tried to kill himself and had screwed a lot of people in the community, and had gone bankrupt, and he was they were kind of glad that he wasn't there anymore, that he was outside of town. He had moved up into Dick Thompson's gravel pit north of where that location was, about a mile.
So, yeah, as you guys can see, it's all kind of intermingled. So the construction of this concrete plant is going to be blocking the road. So Marvin decides he's going to build his own road. It's like, F it, I'm going to build my own road. So that way I don't have to worry about asking them for permission, all this other stuff. This is when he buys a bulldozer because he wants to create his own driveway, because at this point his business is basically really suffering because he cannot get people into the shop without going all the way around and up this really sketchy dirt road to get to him. And so he buys the Komatsu 3150, is it?
I thought it was a 355A.
Oh, let's see. I have it lower in my notes. D355A. True. That was true. I think you said it right. I don't remember. I don't listen to you when you talk.
That's affirmative.
Okay, so he buys the Komatsu and he puts the plans into the town board once again with Jerry and Ron and Cody and, all of these people. The guy who owns the hardware store in town is on the board. All of these people are on the board. The guy who owns the propane plant also on the board.
Yep.
And the board says, we're not approving your plans to build a road to your shop. So now he's got zero way for people to get to his 2 acres that he built. They're like, nope, you're just cut off. Sorry, we're not approving those plans. Also, he had bought a bulldozer to do this. So
right, and when he bought that bulldozer out of California, and no one even knew that he had bought it until it showed up on a flatbed truck, 18-wheeler, and they offloaded it at his place. And everyone's like, what in the world? And then they realized it was his, and they went, okay.
Yeah, he did not purchase the Komatsu to become the Killdozer.
No, he wanted to
just happen that way.
Right. He wanted to take it and he wanted to do the work himself and build a better road for his clients to come to the muffler shop.
Exactly.
And all he would have been doing with it is grading it out a little bit and then turning around, dropping some additional rock and whatnot, compacting it. So he had a usable road for his customers until they got around to actually maybe paving it one day.
Yeah. So as you can imagine, Marv was a little upset by this point, and he definitely, anyone who's interested in this story, I highly recommend finding the whole 2 hour and 45 minute recording and listening to it. It's very interesting. But here's another tidbit from that.
You're absolutely
Had they
right,
not meddled in my
Major
business,
Victory.
this would have turned out. This whole thing would have turned out completely different. If they would have just left me alone, let me get on the water and sand, build the building, put the tenants in there. I could have had that rented out. I could have rented out the muffler shop. I could have sold the muffler shop. I could have subdivided that. Could have done a lot of things. But basically, what all this is going to prove when it's all over with, if it's ever all over with, which I doubt, It's going to prove, I hope it's going to prove to people that meddling in your neighbor's business is destructive for the most part.
True story.
It's going to come back to haunt you. Or it can, I should say. It can come back to haunt you. And it can come back to haunt you in spades. And the only person you have to blame is yourself. And that's one thing I found up here. You know, they've blamed the FDIC for so many of their problems. So many people up here are blamers. They are not responsible. They are not accountable. And that's the only way they can survive. And that's bad, because that is just continually transferred, generation after generation. The way the city operates, you know, it just, nothing ever gets better unless something drastic happens. And basically that's what's going to happen.
That is what's going to happen. So before we go any further, I want to remind you all that, I need to check. Are my super chats on? Could somebody tell me? I think I got remonetized. Let me check on that. But what I was going to say is, if anybody donates anything, anytime during the stream, we will give. Super chats are working. Holy cannoli, I monetized again. How about that? High five.
We're white.
But if you donate either to the Buy Me a Coffee or a super chat or the subscribe star, we will give the pups a treat and they will appreciate it. I guarantee it. I have them down here. Yeah. We got them right here. We have 3 dogs here right now. We have Xena. We have Leia, who's here, and Ava somewhere. She's a terrorist, so she's probably causing. Oh, she's sleeping over there like a sweet.
She is a sweet puppy. Don't listen to her about this terrorist nonsense.
She's not. She's a terrorist. And let me just pull up.
She's part of the Killdozer crew.
Probably. Yeah, that's probably true. Just let me know in the chat if you donate on Subscribestar or Buy Me a Coffee, because it doesn't always come up right away. But this is my one advertisement that I do once. Oh, we got a super chat. Salacious super chatted me? Thank you so much. Okay, so it's cookie time.
Thank you, Salacious.
Thank you, Salacious. Do the honors. $10 super chat from Salacious, my very first super chat since I've been re-monetized, which is all very exciting to me. Also, what I want to say is I have an extra Overruled coffee mug that I want to give away to somebody. So what I've decided to do is anybody who donates anything to any one of the platforms in the month of June, at the end, I will draw a name, the first episode of July, which I believe is the day after my 4th of July party. So I'll probably have guests here. I'm going to draw a name, and whoever's name I draw will receive an Overruled coffee mug. So keep that in mind. Anytime you donate in June, you will be entered into the drawing for a free Overruled coffee mug. All you have to do is tell me where to send it. You don't even have to tell me where you live. You can have me send it to somebody else if you want. What is happening? I told you she was a terrorist.
Actually, it was the other one.
I don't believe it.
I do.
Oh. First person who snuggles with a dog on my kitchen floor gets a coffee mug. That person already has a coffee mug. So thank you so much for the donation, Salacious. I'm going to get back to the story. But if anybody donates, you don't have to donate right now. You have till the end of the show. Just let me know if you do. Where's my notes? Okay. Yeah, Stephen already won the snuggling on the kitchen floor prize.
Twice.
With
two different dogs.
2 different dogs. And we have another dog since then, so you better come back down here and snuggle. All right. So Marvin Heemeyer describes, or has what he describes as a vision from God one night while he's sitting in his hot tub at his Grand Lake cabin.
I've had a lot of visions from God sitting in a hot tub.
You. And what Marvin, he has a vision from God of how he's going to build what he calls the MK tank, what we know today as the Killdozer.
I want to say right now, if I would have been married, had a family, things may have gone different. But God built me for this job. He rewarded me for 45, 50 years with a lifestyle that I am so thankful for. And it's unfortunate, the poor people in Grandby, so many of them were so jealous of my lifestyle that I could come and go as I pleased. Well, God blessed me in advance for the task that I am about to undertake. And I've tossed this, I have fought this for years now. Here it is, 2004, April of 2004. It was sometime in 2001, I believe. And I'm 6, 2000 or 2001, that the peace, I wept at times trying to understand why this was happening to me. And to do what I had to do to make these people listen, to learn, was just above me. And when I realized that one day, when I was sitting in the hot tub, and I was weeping, a peace came over me that has only come over me a few times before in my life, where I knew that what I was doing was tough, but it was the right thing, and that it was above me. It wasn't me. I was doing this because God wanted me to do it. And I didn't understand it. I said, why did you ask me to do this? Is that why I've never been married, so I didn't have a family? Is that why I've always been successful, so that I would realize my reward before doing this task? I don't know. There are other things I can ask. Had I not carried my cross earlier, and now God had prepared me to carry this cross? I believe so. And I'm carrying the cross willingly now. At first, I fought it. But it has to be done. And the world will write stories about how wrong I am and everything. And without a doubt, I wish it could be done a different way. But there is no way to make this right.
So as you can see, Marv, he's a religious man, and he thinks that the Killdozer was a divine vision from God of how he can get back at this town. Which is kind of, I don't know, scary. I don't know if I've ever had a divine vision from God to destroy other people's property.
No.
I've wanted to destroy other people's property, but I don't think it was from God. Yeah. So Marvin basically at this point in his life has a useless property with no income. He feels like he has no hope for his future. He finds out that his girlfriend was cheating on him. When the town board started adding additional fines for having abandoned cars on the now rezoned property, which by the way is part of having like a muffler shop, I would think. Like that's kind of goes along. You have random cars because you're taking parts off of some cars, putting them on other cars, that sort of stuff. So the town, he's at his lowest of lows, and then they're like, hey, by the way, we're going to put additional fines on you for money that you already don't have because you have no income.
It's kind of shitty on their part.
Yeah.
They really went out of their way to make it difficult for him to stay in business.
Exactly.
Now, again, we're looking at it from Marv's point of view. And when you take a step and you kind of look at it from their point of view, they're seeing this outsider come in, not playing by the rules. And so they're going to make his life difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Exactly. So, okay, Marv ends up putting a bunch of his stuff up for auction because dang, I forgot to do that one again. I tried. He puts his stuff up for auction and everything sells except for two of the things that he put up for auction. So it's like equipment and stuff. He has an old car that he puts up for auction, some jet skis, I think one of his snowmobiles, a bunch of stuff, like big ticket items he puts up for auction. And the two things that don't sell is the land that he put up for $410,000 because that's what it was appraised at, and the bulldozer. So now has all of his equipment is gone except for his 2 acres and his bulldozer. And he also thinks that that's probably a sign from God.
This Komatsu was owned by, I believe it was Fresno Tractor, and they'd owned it for about 6 years and had rented it out. And this Komatsu was in excellent condition. If any Komatsu D355 should have brought $54,000, which is what I had it at, that one should have. I was willing at the auction to take $33,000 for it. Couldn't get a bid. I got a $20,000 bid. That was the only real bid we got. Well, I had $24,000 in it. I'm not going to sell it for that, especially when Ritchie Brothers says it's worth $43,000. So I kept the dozer. What was unique, after everything's gone, I find out that the dozer is 2 inches shorter than 12 feet and will go into the storage building. It is 1 inch narrower than the door. If I take the little bottom, the edging grousers off, or whatever they call them on the dozer blade, if I take those off, that dozer will go in my storage building. So I says, well, let's put it inside, because then I can build it to do what I am supposed to do. And I could not believe it. I put up a 4x8 piece of plywood on each side of the door so that the blade would go through, drove that thing up there, got out to where the cab was close to the door, checked the clearance, and I had 2-3 inches of clearance. I drove it right in there. It fit through that door so tight, you almost had to grease it to get it in there. Why did that particular dozer fit in the building? Why had I not bought one of the D9s at that Fresno auction? It doesn't make any sense. You know, a D9's got more horsepower. It's probably more dependable than a Komatsu. If I'd have bought one of them, I'd have never got it in that building, because they were much taller than the Komatsu was. So I'm thinking, well, this is good. I get it inside. Now I can build it.
So there's a lot of things that Marv is seeing as a sign from God. The fact that his bulldozer and his land didn't sell, the fact that it fit specifically, like with inches to spare on all sides into the storage unit, all of these little things. Another thing, well, let's get to what he did to the Killdozer, and I know during his manifesto speech, I guess, or audio recording.
Right.
It's not a written manifesto, but he says that he was hoping to get caught, and he took the fact that he did not get caught as a sign from God as well.
He did a couple of things that should have actually got him caught at some point, but he didn't. So, all right. So,
give me 1 second. Let me put this back on while you talk.
All right. So again, Marv bought this dozer at an auction in California, and he got it shipped all the way out to Colorado. And the fact that he says, I bought this specific dozer, I got something different, but I got this specific one, plays into his mindset of this is a sign from God. But he began working on that dozer, and we end up calling it Killdozer. He wanted to call it MK
Tank.
MK Tank. That's right.
The Marvin Komatsu tank.
Right. And us, living on the outside, we just call it Killdozer because that name stuck. Although the name doesn't really fit, because he didn't actually kill anyone. He destroyed a lot with it.
You know what though? I realize this just dawned on me. I'm so sorry to interrupt your one part of the show that I gave you to cover. But when I was doing that episode about that Nirvana song, one of the punk bands that was playing that night that girl got kidnapped was named Killdozer.
Right.
So I wonder if, like, could you imagine having a band like when you were in high school or something and naming it Killdozer and then seeing this thing on the news like 20 years later going like, somebody built our band name.
Yep.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
It was neat because they actually had the band name written across the shirt. We actually stopped it and looked at it.
Yeah.
But Marv actually never intended to kill anyone. He did not kill anyone other than himself. That Komatsu D355A, he started outfitting it with metal. Some of it was an inch thick metal, followed by a good sized core of concrete with another inch thick of metal, pretty much making it one, impenetrable, and two, just unstoppable by any means other than probably military grade explosives, to be honest with you.
They used explosives, didn't work.
Military grade explosives.
Okay. Fancy explosives.
Yes, fancy stuff.
Whatever.
They also could have probably done a couple of other things, and it's just from my background in the military to stop tracked vehicles, but obviously they had no idea what they were doing or to stop it. So
how do you plan for something like that?
No, you don't. But at the same time, if they would have had some other military-minded folks there at the time, they may have went, okay, how do we stop a tank? Because this is essentially what it is, and then gone that route with it. But I don't think they had anyone up in that small community, other than maybe a couple. And again, Marv was in the Air Force. He probably didn't do anything with tanks. I think he was MP. Is that what he was?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, he started building this armor plating over the entire thing, which covered basically everything. And if you look at the video there, it covers the cabin, it covers the engine, it covers part of the tracks. He really actually put a lot of thought into covering this dozer with this protective layer so that no one could technically get in there and stop him by having that magic bullet, so to speak, being able to shut down the engine or anything like that. In some places, the armor was over a foot thick. And again, that's because they put concrete in between two steel plates. Some of the other stuff that he did was he had cameras put in the system all around the vehicle. And those cameras were hid behind 3-inch polycarbonate plastic, which is basically bulletproof plastic. They use some of that polycarbonate plastic in like hockey arenas, so that the
hockey players don't go through
the pucks don't go through it and stuff like that. But they didn't realize that he was using cameras until later, because there's just 3 little small ports, and they're like, oh, that's how he's looking out, that's how he's seeing. But they didn't realize it was actually a camera system. The way he was looking through it, because as you can see on the video here, he's got a lot of debris on it. There's a lot of dust and whatnot. He actually also put compressed air by those ports to blow out any debris covering that plastic, so that he could continue to use those cameras.
He really thought of everything.
He really did, and which is amazing that he had 18 months to just go over. Okay, what about this? What if they do this? And just kind of pick away at any plans that he could come up with to say, okay, this is how they're going to stop me, so I'm going to do this, and so on. But with those cameras, he had 2 old school monitors that were inside the cab, one of which was a TV VCR combo. But this allowed him to see what those cameras were doing, and he never really had to look out any glass that he never had intended with.
Like when I was researching and I saw the picture of the inside of the cab with that combo TV VCR, do you have any idea how much I wish that he would have just stuck a VHS in there and hit record for these 2 hours that this was happening? 2 hours and 7 minutes of that. That would have been amazing.
Which makes you wonder if he didn't and someone's just holding it.
Oh, somebody leak that footage, please. I need to see that.
One of the other things that
I'm going to put them outside. You keep going.
One of the other things that Marv did was he wanted to try and keep people from getting on top of it. He knew that there were a couple places for him to get onto the vehicle. And he actually went so far as to grease the outside of the Killdozer. Now, he also knew that this was not going to last very long. So people were like, well, how did he get in? Well, he actually greased the outside of the Killdozer and then used a ladder to get up into the port where he was going to get in and then lock himself in it.
Yeah.
So the entire side of it was greased. So that was pretty inventive of him, try and just keep people down. During the 2 hour and 7 minute rampage, over 200 rounds of ammo, including 50 cals, were fired at the Killdozer with no effect. Now, I know what a 50 cal round can do to various items, and from soft targets to hard targets. And the fact that he was able to put this.
What do you mean by soft target, hon?
Well, squishy stuff.
Okay.
But the fact that even 50 cal rounds did not damage this armor that he put in place shows a testament to how much thought he actually put into getting this into play. Once the rampage was done, law enforcement tried to get into the cab by using explosives, some of which were not frag grenades. They were the shock grenades,
like the flashbangs.
Yeah, stuff like that. They're a
Yeah.
little bit more powerful. Flashbang, stuff like that. And none of it worked. None of it actually worked.
Yeah.
They believe that Marv never truly intended on leaving that Killdozer cap once he sealed himself in. And the fact that they believe that is he had a pistol with him and ended up taking his own life at the very end. And it took them almost 15 hours, I believe. Once everything was done, 15 hours to get into the Killdozer once he was completed. And once again, you got to think that it took him 18 months to put this together. And like you said, throughout those 18 months, he was trying to see if he got caught. He never did anything drastic so he wouldn't get caught. He just put a couple of things into place.
Mm-hmm.
And if he did get caught, he got caught. Oh, well, no big deal. But he never did. And that's why this all played.
Well, the one thing I want to say is that outside shell, the big outside shell, that was one solid piece. And he used the lift in his garage and a remote control for it to put that on after he was inside. So there was no opening at all. That outside shell was just like the cab part of it was just on there. The other thing is about him getting caught or giving this is what he's saying. This is not what I'm saying, but giving God opportunities to change his mind, I guess. In Marv's mind is he played the lottery for the first time in his life. And he said if he would have won the lottery and made the money back, that he could have dug himself out of this hole that the town has put him in, he would have stopped. The other thing is he sold his land for $400,000 at the time, which you would think would have been a sign from God. I would have thought that would have been it if he was looking for a sign from God, but he sold his land to a trash collection company.
Correct.
and rented the storage space back from them. And during that time, they had to have an insurance inspector come in to insure the property, because when you buy property, that's just what you got to do. And he gave the insurance inspector and the guys who bought the property from him a tour, and they asked about the Killdozer, and he made up some story about it being some experimental cooling system that he was working on with some professor out of Minnesota. And they didn't bat an eye at it.
They bought it hook, line, and sinker, and he went,
yeah.
Okay, I'm going to keep going.
But yeah, the one thing that bothers me about this story is that he kept saying in his manifesto that he was looking for a sign from God to not do this. And the fact that the land sold for $400,000 after taxes, he kept $360-something thousand of it, like pocketed it. And that was, he didn't take that as a sign. Right. So I'm not sure how hard he was looking for a sign to not do it, is what I'm saying. All right, next video.
Maybe it was planned before I was born. I don't know. I don't understand predestination that much, but I do believe in it. So here we are, and I am at peace with what I am about to do. I have to be. And although I've wrestled with it for years, and God gave me this last winter off again because he knew that I wasn't strong, and that was so unique that this didn't get done last year. How the sale of the business kind of interrupted my progress on my my Marv Komatsu. What did I call it? I got a name for it. Oh, my MK tank. That I didn't get the old MK tank done last fall is amazing, because it should have happened. But God has His timing, His plans made out, and they're to be, and it looks like it's going to be, because the one thing that I have wanted to do is get caught. I had hoped that somebody would catch me, and that this whole thing would stop, and that would be a good sign for me not to do it. I've hoped. I haven't played the lottery a lot, but I've hoped that I would win the lottery, and I could forget this whole thing. I could move on, because then I would have my $300,000, and I would have my life back, and I could live the way I want to live. But I had that money. This cabin was bought and paid for free. I didn't have a rental payment. People will say that, why did he do that? He had such a good life. He had a better life than me anyway. Well, I can understand that to a point. It's not what I deserved. You meddled in my business and took what I deserved away. You took advantage of my good nature. Well, I think there's something you should learn here. For as good as a man can be, also can he be as bad.
Yeah, real quick. Did he have AC? No, he actually just had a fan in there. He had a couple of fans. He really didn't have.
I thought he did have AC.
He didn't have a proper AC unit in there.
He had some sort of circulation, though.
Yeah. Now the other thing is, what I didn't mention was he actually had a couple of gun ports, and he actually had a couple.
I forgot to put that in the notes.
Oh, that's all right. He had a couple of rifles that were, I think, one on each side and one out the back, if I'm not mistaken. And what he did, bless you. What he did was, throughout his adventure, let's call it that, he actually utilized those rifles to try and add additional damage to certain things. And I'm sure that you're going to go over some of those aspects of it.
I am. Sure enough. All right. So, June 4th, 2004 is the day, exactly 19 years ago today. The high in Grandby, Colorado is 81 degrees and the low is 48 degrees with zero precipitation that day.
81 degrees here right now.
I can tell. It's really hot in this room. The wind was calm for most of the day, but between 3 and 4 p.m., it was actually between 3 and 4:07, I guess. It was 2 hour or 5:07, whatever. The wind gusts picked up during the time that this event was happening, is what I was trying to say, up to 18 miles an hour. Marvin Heemeyer drove his Killdozer through the wall of his storage shed and began his rampage. He started out with the... He started out right next door. He busts through this wall here and goes directly over here, takes out this building, and then takes out this building. And while he was on the property of the concrete plant workers, of course, immediately call the police. They know who it is because they know they have beef with this guy next door, and they saw him bust out of his shed and come across the, whatever fence, or it looked like those traffic walls or whatever in between when you actually get down and look at it.
Jersey barrier area.
Actually, you might be able to see them here. I don't know how well the street view is, but yeah, they're just like little barriers. It's not even like a whole wall or anything. The concrete workers were really smart, I think. They took a 1-inch steel rod and tried to poke it into the tracks of the Killdozer, but it didn't work the first time, and then they stopped trying that. But I think that was probably the way to go to stop this thing.
And actually, if you can get the tracks to come off of the vehicle, you pretty much immobilize it right then and there. And that is something that they kind of quit doing. Like you said, after that first time it didn't do anything. They could have attempted to put more debris in there and try to get more stuff stuck in there, or try to get whether it be bob wire, concertina wire, metal pipes or whatnot inside those tracks to get it to stop.
Mm-hmm.
And they just kind of quit.
Yeah. But Cody did not quit. Cody Jochef, arch nemesis himself, decides, you all aren't doing a good job. My employees, you're not doing a good job stopping this maniac, so I'm going to do it myself, as any good boss says. So he gets a front end loader, jumps in it, and tries to get the bucket underneath the Killdozer and lift it up. But of course, this Killdozer is like, I don't know, 80 million pounds.
Well, it was,
I'm estimating.
I believe it's over 50 tons without the armor he put on.
But the armor was 2 feet thick of concrete and metal, steel plates. So I'm sure it weighed. I'm sure you could probably look up. I don't have it in my notes, but it weighed a lot. So the front end loader was basically doing nothing. And when Marv sees Cody and this front end loader trying to stop him, this is the first time he opens fire. This is the first time that they realize, oh, he's got guns. Yep. He's got guns too. Oh no. Luckily for Cody, the bucket of the front end loader caught the rounds and he did not get hit. But once the bullets started flying at him, he pieced out. He's like, that's fine. Take out the concrete plant. It's not worth my life.
Yeah, when he took that front end loader and tried to get up underneath the Killdozer, he found that 3 of his 4 tires was actually lifting up off the ground.
Yeah.
And then when Marv started shooting at him, and again, I don't know that Marv was actually trying to kill him or just trying to get him away, because every round ended up inside the bucket for the front end loader.
Yeah, everybody, whenever I hear this story retold, the way I hear people tell it is that he didn't try to kill anybody. But I don't think that's true. I just think he didn't kill anybody, because he did shoot at Marv. He shot at police. He shot at propane tanks that would have blew up with people in the building right there. Just regular office workers, just random people. So maybe he took out buildings that he had no idea if there was people there. There was one of the buildings had a daycare in it.
And one of them had, was a residence.
An old lady.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I hate to burst people's bubble, but before I started researching this, Marv Heemeyer was also a hero, I guess you would anti-hero.
Folklore hero.
A folklore type of, but the more I researched it, I mean, I just don't know about this guy. I mean, and he didn't like Catholics. I'm Catholic, you know.
I think that's where your biggest hang up is the fact he doesn't like Catholics.
You know. No, but I mean the killing people though. Like if you're shooting at people, there's no other reason to shoot at people. You know. Anyway, so he moves on from the concrete plant. The police get there and start following him at the concrete plant. So they get there on his first spot, or his first destruction. And he starts firing back they start shooting at him. Obviously the bullets are doing nothing because he built a tank. The bullets are doing nothing. And he starts shooting back at the police. He also runs over one of their cars. And it seemed like it was on purpose. Like he went out of his way to hit one of these troopers' cars.
Yeah.
So, which he could have just been having fun. Nobody was in the car. You know what I mean?
Well, he saw that guy get out of the car
Yeah.
and started shooting at him. So he kind of went, well, I'm just going to take my toy and smash yours.
Yeah, exactly. The next thing that he hit was Mountain Park Electric, which is right here. So he comes down through what used to be his easement down the road and takes out Mountain Park Electric here. Then he goes to Maple Street Builders, which is no longer there anymore. But from what I understand, just from research, it was where this car wash used to be, somewhere like right in here, either here or over here. But it was like on the same route. There's pretty famous footage taken from just up on this hill. Let's see if we can get. I think it was from.
I believe it's over
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
From right about here.
Yep.
And you can see the Killdozer go down this street here, past this Napa Auto Parts. So somebody was filming from right there. And this is the electric building, I think. Yeah, that's the electric building. The next place he goes is City Hall. Now, City Hall is where there was a daycare in the basement of the town hall. And not only, I mean, luckily they figured out where he was heading and they evacuated everybody. But he ran over like playground equipment. I don't think if there was kids on the playground, he would have went through the play. I just don't think he was out to kill kids.
And the other thing is, I don't know that he was moving slow. Okay?
Yeah.
He knows he's moving slow. He knows that he's making a big commotion. He knows that people are going to be saying, hey, he's coming your direction, get out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm not 100% positive that, he was out to, harm people other than their pocketbooks, because of the fact that he was in a vehicle that was moving like 5 miles an hour.
I think a top speed was like 7.
Yeah.
But for the most part, he was going about 4 to 5 miles an hour for most of this 2 hours and 7 minutes.
So that's why I think that I don't believe that was his main thing, was to harm anyone.
Yep. The next place he went was Liberty Savings Bank. Oops. Oh no. What did I do? I don't remember which building it was. It's now called Blue Credit Union. Well, that messed me up. As far as we can tell, the only beef that he had with this bank is that when he paid his $2,500 fine, I forget which fine that was for.
That was, I believe that was one of the initial ones.
The sewer fine?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So he goes to pay the fine and he wrote the number out wrong. Like when you handwrite the number out on a check. I don't know if all of you people here are old like me and have written checks before, but you actually have to write out the number like 2,500 and 00100 like that.
Correct.
So he wrote it out wrong and the bank would not cash the check. And he thought they called him and said, you have to come down here and cross it out, write it correctly, and initial it. And he thought that they were just giving him the runaround. He thought, like, why don't you just cash the check?
Correct.
But for that, what do you call it? Like an indiscretion? For that minor inconvenience to him, he basically took out the front of the bank with customers, tellers, random secretaries, whoever inside.
Yeah, the bank wasn't on anyone's hit list as far as like, oh, we know that he's got a beef with this company. Yeah. We know that he's got a beef, so we need to, and he's heading in these directions. Let's make sure that we warn everyone. Hey, look, dude over here's got a tank, and he's going to run your.
No, all of these places were on the list that he had a handwritten list in the cockpit with him of this bulldozer, except for Copycat. I think he hit that place by accident because that wasn't on the list.
Right. That was next door to the.
It was next door to the last place. Yeah. Okay. So at this time, one of the police officers threw a flashbang into the exhaust of the Killdozer. It had no effect at all. And
the reason it had no effect was because he kind of anticipated that they might try something like that. So he actually put a protective layer to keep debris. It wasn't necessarily for them to throw stuff in there, but debris from getting into it and messing up any of the exhaust or getting into the actual motor.
I want to just take a quick break and say thank you to Frank for the $2 super chat. And
hey, Frank,
as
how you doing?
Know on our channel, when we get a super chat, whichever dogs are here, which is just Xena right now, gets a milk bone. There she is. Thank you so much. Xena appreciates it. You all are going to make my dogs fat, and I'm here for it. Thank you very much, Frank. So the next place he went to was Sky News. Now, this guy at Sky News wrote an op-ed whenever they were going back and forth with all of these fines and Marv trying to sue them and stop them from building the concrete plant. The guy from Sky News was not, according to Marv, did not paint him in a positive light, which hurt his business.
Much it was going to affect what I was doing. This newspaper guy, Patrick Brower, had told me after I started the muffler shops on a couple of different occasions, because I called him and I was advertising with him and so forth. He said that he was going to come down and we'd do an article on my little business. Well, he never did do it. You know, he was doing everything he could to keep me from getting any additional publicity. It's one of those, it's a kind of a community that in order for you to get ahead, you have to keep the neighbor down. You've got to keep, you got to be bad-mouthing everybody. It's not, you know, build yourself up on your own merits. It's tear the other guy down, however you can do it, legally, of course. I'm going to take a break here. I guess I'm not going to take a break. Lose my train of thought. Anyway, this Patrick Brower, I mean, he's a pothead. Of course, you can't tell anybody that. You know, big liberal, army brat, has had everything in his life given to him. You know,
I mean, big liberal pothead, I'd take him out. That was a joke. That was a joke.
But he knows how to abuse the power of the pen. And that's a big thing up here, is abuse of power. They said that to me one time, that I didn't have any respect for authority. And that's not the truth at all. The truth is I have the utmost respect for authority. But they don't. They didn't respect the FDIC or its procedures. They don't respect good people coming in the community. They only respect what they want. And if they're in that power circle, that's the way it's going to be, they believe. And you're not going to get in if you've done anything to offend them in any way. Well, I guess that's their right in America. But I've got my rights too. Maybe they're wrong when I exercise these rights, but I really don't care. I am going to exercise this right because we are given this freedom to do what we want to do until we do something wrong. And then we have to pay for it. Well, these people have figured out a pretty good way, being a small community, how to get away with doing things wrong and doing it legally.
So that was what he was saying about the newspaper guy. And actually I'll put on this very beginning of this video here is him taking out the news. This is the news paper building. So we'll leave that on in the background for a minute. And you'll notice after he gets done plowing through the front of the building, he goes down the side of the building. As he's going down the side of the building and the ceiling is collapsing down, employees are running out the back. So this place was not evacuated before he started. They evacuated as he's coming in the front. They're going out the back. It looks like somebody is a member now. How does that even work? I've never had a member before. Jammin' Jet? Thank you.
Jammin' Jeff is the first member.
It didn't give me a notification for that. Oh, did it? I don't know.
It did. It told you right down there. Scroll down.
We're figuring things out as we go along.
Right there. Right there.
Thank you so much. We'll give Xena a treat for becoming a member. For sure. And
that's Life asking Jammin' Jetty. Is that your first member at KDZ?
Either way, I don't know where it notifies me, but she can definitely have a treat for that.
Yes, doggies do get treats for members.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You also get entered into the drawing for the Overruled coffee mug, as does Frank. Speaking of Frank, I think it's interesting that he popped in right as Marvin was talking about people holding their neighbors down instead of lifting them up. Because when I first started this channel, Frank is one of those people who has a large following who reached his hand down to pull me up. And I really appreciate that. And I thought that was kind of kismet, sort of, that he popped in right as that was being discussed. Thank you, Big Daddy Frank. I appreciate it.
Does the mug come filled with rum?
I mean, if you pick it up yourself, I will definitely fill it with rum for you. So you can see the damage he's doing to this building here. And these poor people that live in this apartment building next door, all of their cars get taken out. I don't think he had anything against those people. I think their cars were just in the way. You'll see it happen here in a minute. A police officer named Glenn Trainer, after he's done with this fiasco with the newspaper place, this cop actually manages to get up on the top of the Killdozer and figures out that there's no opening. He was thinking he was going to get up there, open it up, and like take out the guy, whoever's, doing this damage.
Yeah.
He gets up there and he's like, there's no hatch. There's no way to get in.
Yeah, there was a tank that was actually in Southern California around that same time period.
It was 1995, actually.
Yeah.
When the guy hijacked the tank.
Remember, we're old.
Yeah.
So around that same time period.
How is 1995 and 2004 the same time period?
Hey, we're old.
Speak for yourself.
You're older than I am. Anyway, they were able to get in there via the top, just like that, open the hatch.
Can you believe I keep this guy around? Anyway. Where was I? Oh, okay, so Glenn Trainer is the officer's name. Hero, in my opinion. He tries to stop this from happening. And keep in mind, at this time, nobody knows what's happening. This makeshift tank, is firing shots, right? He's taking out buildings. They think he's on a killing spree. He wasn't, but they didn't know that at the time. At the time, it was very chaotic. They were shooting with nothing's happening. They're shooting at him with 50 caliber bullets, and it's not even making a mark. Well, it's probably made a mark, but
it's like
barely.
A mosquito hitting a bull's ass.
Barely. That was very vivid. It barely, makes a mark.
Yeah.
He ends up getting up there and could not find a way to get in. Around this time, and I don't know exactly how the timeline lines up, but the governor of Colorado, his name was Bill Owens at the time, calls in the Army National or the Colorado National Guard to bring an Apache attack helicopter and troops equipped with Javelin anti-tank missiles. Can you tell me what a Javelin anti-tank missile is? Because I have no idea. I just did the research and wrote it down.
All right.
So
Javelin anti-tank missile at this time period was a newer system designed to specifically go through the armament of tanks and up-armored vehicles. So very well could have gone through this and stopped him dead in his tracks. But in 2004, it'd probably been around for about 8 years at that point.
Okay.
So
didn't they just had him on hand in the middle of the country?
They have them in Army National Guard, State
Like
National Guard,
depots?
stuff like that. They have it for training purposes because you have people that are, that's their MOS, even though they're in the reserves or the National Guard or whatnot, they still have to train and practice.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, after he is done, you can see he's on the move now again. He goes to the home of Mrs. Thompson. Now, Mrs. Thompson was the wife of the late mayor of Grandby. They were mentioned, the Thompsons were mentioned before. The brother was on the sewer board, and the guy whose house he went to, who, by the way, had already passed away. So it was just his widow living there at the time, an older lady. He goes to their house and destroys their house. And I have a little clip about why he hates the Thompsons.
The Thompson brothers were down below my house here in Grand Lake, digging a foundation for a house. One day, I had some happening out the driveway, and Larry Thompson was standing out by his truck by himself. So I drove up to him and had a few words with him. Basically, what I told him was that, Larry, I actually called him Ron first. He says, Ron's dead. And I says, I'm sorry, Larry. And I says, but listen, maybe it's good that Ron's dead. Because, no, it isn't, he said. And I says, well, about in 1992, your family made some decisions that financially affected my life for the rest of my life. And I can't afford it. And it cost me at least a minimum of $300,000. And I says, you need to pay me. He says, what are you talking about? I basically told him, I said, don't play ignorant, OP. And he shut right up. He says, you know what I'm talking about. I says, your family made those decisions, and I'm referring to the ones that where they kept me off, where Ron Thompson kept me off the sanitation district. I said, you know about that? And I says, you owe me. And I says, I want $300,000 from you. And he says, it'll never happen. And I says, I guarantee you, Larry, I'm going to collect. I says, it's a duty I have. I says, I basically can't call myself a man if I don't make this right. And I says, Ron died, and I think of all the money that he got, that you inherited, because he died from your father's estate, that you had all inherited, I think that you ought to probably pay me with that. And he says, not going to happen. I says, well, I am going to collect. And I drove away. I got about 4 or 5 truck lengths away. And he basically confirmed in my mind right there that he knew what I was talking about. And he knew what had been done. Because he had one thing to say. He screamed it at me as I'm about 5 truck lengths away. He screamed, you can suck my dick.
Sorry about the language.
I stopped the truck and I laughed out loud, and I told him, I says, that will never happen. Well, when someone is that frustrated that they've got to say something like that, they know. You could tell it in the tone of his voice. You could tell it by what he said. You could tell it by the way he acted. He's a cowardly bastard. He's a Catholic. And I think they are some of the biggest cowards I have ever met. I've known it for years. They have a different idea. They read from a different Bible. And they believe, I truly believe that they believe the only way that they can stay on top and give the Pope his money and all this stuff is to keep their neighbor down. There is no building to the Catholics to their neighbor. They don't believe in encouraging their neighbor.
That's not true. I believe in encouraging my neighbors. Anybody who knows me knows that.
All right, so there was a question, is it shoulder fired? Is the javelin shoulder fired? A SMAW is shoulder fired. I believe that the javelin has a tripod type of functionality to it. It has to have some type of support. I don't think that you would be very easily able to fire it via your shoulder.
MrZed was a machine gunner, not a javelin thrower.
Actually, machine gunner. I was also a SMAW section leader, which is the younger cousin to that, to the javelin. And I was weapons platoon sergeant.
Okay, so maybe he does know.
I know a little bit.
I don't know what he knows. I know what I know. What I know is the next place that Marvin went is the Thompsons had an excavation and storage facility that Marvin went to next. So Thompson's house, and then this place was almost directly across the street from Mrs. Thompson's house. After that, Marvin goes to Independence Gas, and this is like a propane. I think they sold propane and propane accessories in town there. And he starts trying to fire bullets at the propane tanks. Luckily, thank goodness that the way that it was angled on a hill, and I'll show you where this place was. It's like down a hill. It's over here. So he went down this hill here, and he's firing at these propane tanks that they have on their property here. And the way it was angled, he had to angle his gun in such a way to aim at these propane tanks that it was just going into the inside of his armor and did not hit the propane tanks. Now, this part of the story is pretty famous because as he is leaving here, he backed up onto this hill to turn around. He did like a 3-point turn. And I noticed on Google Maps here that this drainage thing is still broken, and he broke this that day, this drainage thing, and it looks like they still haven't fixed it. Whoa. And then he goes back up this hill, back up to the main road here. And this is when that scraper truck gets... Did you just lick me?
She did.
That's when the scraper truck tries to block him in. And let's see. I know it's in this one here. Maybe not.
Real quick, Major, I believe you're right. I believe that he would have had to, one, knock a hole into the propane tank so the gas would leak, and then a subsequent spark would have had to cause that. One nice thing about propane is it will make a large boom as the gases explode, but it's a very quick and dispersed, unlike gasoline or diesel or something like that.
Yeah. It still would have blew up though, right?
It would have blew up. It would have made a nice fireball.
Yeah.
And the shrapnel, obviously, but it wouldn't be as deadly as maybe, an oil refinery type of explosion.
Okay. So this is video of him trying to fire at the propane tanks, and his bullets are just going into the inside of his armor here. And then he gives up and tries to leave. Scraper truck's gonna come and kind of put a stop to it.
And when I was talking about other ways to have stopped the actual tank, one of the things they never thought about was aiming at his gun ports. They were always looking at the ports where the cameras were, and they were trying to shoot there. They didn't take the opportunity to try and figure out if they could hit those gun ports. One, disable the guns, but two, maybe get lucky enough to where they would have a situation where they hit the actual gun and a bullet would be able to, the projectile go into the actual dozer itself.
You guys can see on the screen right now, even though this scraper truck is so much bigger than he is, his weight behind him is just pushing this guy out of the way like it's nothing. Just kind of crazy. And then at one point, this guy just kind of gives up a little bit and leaves him alone. He ends up following him. You'll see the scraper truck again towards the end when he goes into the Gamble's Hardware. The scraper truck kind of comes and blocks him in. So the next place he hits is Copycat it was a copy store at the time, and this was not actually on the list of places. So that's why I think that this was just, he was trying to line up to hit Gamble's, which Gamble's was owned by somebody who was on the board, not the board, the city council, which is why he hit Gamble's. It was that person's store. Right after he hit the copycat place, you can see his radiator's going to blow up, and you'll see huge clouds of white smoke start pouring out of the Killdozer. And then right after that is when he hits the Gamble's hardware store. After taking out the front of the building, Marvin starts going up the side wall, just like we saw him do with the newspaper place. So he goes, he's trying to take out two sides of the building, so basically the whole thing collapses, like he did to all these other buildings. And what he doesn't know is that towards the back of that hardware store, there's actually a basement, like a storage basement. So here you'll see, this is where he hits the copycat, and then the Gamble's is the red fronted place, and the copycat is the white place right here that he's about to hit. You see his radiator just blew, and the steam is just pouring out.
It's causing him not to be able to see correctly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe he was trying to hit that copycat place. I believe he was trying to get in position to take out the Gamble's store.
Exactly. So he, the other thing is, I think when you were saying about them hitting his gun ports, I don't think they realized that the ports where the cameras were at were cameras. I think he thought that he was looking through there.
Correct.
And how they wouldn't have known that there's 3 inches of polycarbonate.
Right, and that's why they kept shooting there instead of at the actual gun ports.
Yeah, exactly. So he gets halfway down the building, and then his tracks on the right-hand side break through that floor, and it's just basement below. So it kind of throws him off kilter to where none of his tracks are touching anything anymore, and he gets stuck.
Yeah, it gets kind of high-centered.
Yeah, exactly. So the police and I don't know if military were there by that time or not. Whoever was there, whatever authorities were there, kind of move in, and they hear one single gunshot was muffled, heard from inside the Killdozer, and then nothing more. It took them. They tried to use explosives to get into this cab of this Killdozer. All that did was leave like a charred mark on the side of the Killdozer. It didn't even dent it, not even a little bit. It didn't do anything to it. They ended up having to use
oxyacetylene cutting torches.
Thank you for saying that word for me.
You're welcome.
Oxyacetylene cutting torch to get into it, and that did not happen until the early morning hours of the next day, about 12 to 15 hours later after this. When they get inside, what they find is, well, what Dave had said earlier with the fan and the monitors, all the gun ports, all of that stuff. But there was also a piece of paper with a handwritten list on it, and every single place that was on the list was hit except for one place, which, I mean, we can assume he would have been going to next if he wouldn't have gotten stuck. And that place was the local Catholic church. So he did not get to destroy a church that day. I think that may have been the divine intervention. There was talks in the town about keeping the Killdozer around. What do you think about that?
I think that if they would have kept it around, it would have been a money-making opportunity for the town.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not right away, but they would have absolutely utilized it as like a museum, tourist attraction, whatnot. They could have absolutely done that. Maybe recoup some of the money that Marv took away from the town during his destruction.
Over $7 million.
Yep. And instead of that, what they did was they took it completely apart, piece by piece, and destroyed it. So it's kind of like OJ's white Bronco.
Yeah.
Okay. could they have utilized it and made money out of
I
it?
mean, we went to a museum specifically to see OJ's Bronco.
Yeah. And
this is what we do on vacation, guys.
you know, if they would have kept that Killdozer
I could
in Grandby,
see us going to Colorado to see the Killdozer.
oh,
was there.
absolutely.
I mean, I did make you go to the Crime Museum in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee.
That is true. You have to see a couple of different vehicles involved in a couple of different incidences over time.
Like Ed is saying in the chat, Kyle Rittenhouse's gun, which is destroyed. I would have went to Kenosha, not only to see you, because I know you're in Wisconsin, Ed, but to see Kyle Rittenhouse's gun.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
You know, if it would have been put up for auction, you know, that's something that someone would have definitely purchased and, you know, been able to make some money off of it and put it up in a showcase or whatnot. So I think they want to just get rid of it.
Not only did they scrap it, they scrapped it and made sure that the different pieces of it went to different dump sites. So it couldn't be put back together. So, you know, pieces couldn't be taken, that sort of thing. So they really, they got rid of it.
Yep. I'm sure there's little pieces here and there that someone's kept or whatnot, but at the same time, I don't know if there's a way to actually prove that you've got a piece of it.
No, yeah, exactly. Salacious was asking in the chat why he was targeting a church, and it's because he hated Catholics is why he was targeting a church.
Yeah, he said
those
Bible
who made me your enemy.
Why is it doing that?
Those who made me your enemies, or enemy. Those who made me your enemy. They are the guilty ones. The Thompsons are guilty. The Dochefs are guilty. The Grandby Town Board is guilty. The Grandby Planning Commission is guilty. My neighbors are guilty. It took all of you 10 years to get me. And you got me, no doubt about it. I got screwed big time. We talked today about it to Dave Patner. He knows I got fucked. And he knows that they do it. And they get away with it. There's nothing you can do about it. He says, well, I'm going to do something about it. It may only change people for a generation. Maybe two. May not change them at all. Maybe make them worse. That's the way it's supposed to be. And that's the way it will be. God's will be done. Through me.
So that's Marvin Heemeyer, everyone. Do you want to read the last quote?
I was always willing to be reasonable until I had to become unreasonable. Sometimes reasonable men do unreasonable things.
So what do you guys think of the Killdozer story? Let me know in the chat and we'll get your final thoughts. I hear the dogs trying to break down the door. It's a little distracting.
They're like, cookies?
Yeah, I know. If somebody donates, I'll let them back in and give them cookies.
All right, so at the beginning, I said that I had my own theory about everything. All right, so I think off the get-go, Marvin was in his thought process was correct. I think that there's certain townsfolk that were against him, that were playing against him. They were utilizing the local government, which they were all part of, to hold him down.
Mm-hmm.
And just to give an example, homeowners associations, they will put their thumb on you, and the only way that you're going to be able to change anything is become part of the homeowners association.
You have to become them.
And then once you're in charge, now you've got the power and you can do what you need to do. He didn't go that route. It was beneath him to go that route. I also think that his cognitive thinking and abilities were declining the more that he fantasized about, all of this going on. People that he thought were against him really didn't pay him two minds.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't care. They're like, no, that's just not right. And then they went on with their lives where he thought they had grudges, lifelong grudges.
Yeah.
The fact that he blamed and went after the son saying, your father owed me this. Well, just because the father may have, swindled him out of $300,000 doesn't mean the son's got to pay him. Okay?
Exactly. That was interesting to me in that clip that I played when he was talking about the Thompsons. He was asking for money from one of the sons, or from the brother that was dead. Like, the brother that was dead is the one that did him wrong.
Right. I didn't know if it was the son or his brother.
But it wasn't the person he was asking for the money.
Correct.
So
I also think that as things went along, and then he started going, oh, well, this is God's will, and he started, this whole concoction in his head, everything got blown out of perspective.
Mhm.
Everything got way over dramatized in his own head. So his own head was probably his greatest enemy.
yeah.
Again, I think maybe at the beginning he had some feuds and whatnot, but he allowed those feuds to actually take hold and break his mental capacity down in the long run. And yeah, some of it might have been true. Okay. I believe some of it
I think
was
the
true.
Cody thing was definitely true. Cody
Yeah.
Docek and whatever his partner's name was, I forget now.
Yeah. You said that guy had a weird look on his face, like,
Okay.
ha, ha, ha.
So when we watched the documentary about this, Cody Docek's partner, who's named Gus Harris, is interviewed in this documentary. And I have a pretty good, I watch a lot of true crime stuff and a lot of like police
Interviews.
interrogations, things like that. This guy, when we were sitting there and I said it out loud, I'm like, that guy's lying. You could just tell this guy was not telling the truth when he was talking. Like, anything that was coming about out of his mouth, he had that duper's delight smile that you see sometimes when you see people giving interviews. You saw it with Stephen McDaniel. You saw it with Chris Watts, where he can't help but have a grin on his face because he feels like he's getting one over on you.
He
That's
thinks
what
that
I-
everyone's believing the lie.
He thinks he's the smartest guy in the room.
Yep.
Yeah, I had that feeling watching this Gus Harris guy. Now, the Thompson brothers, all of the other people that they interviewed his girlfriend, they interviewed the Thompsons, they interviewed a bunch of other people. I don't think any of them were lying. They just had what they saw as the events that happened differed from the way Marv saw it happening. The way the Thompsons saw it is that a concrete plant was good for the town because it was creating jobs and they were building, and that's why they wanted to have this concrete plant. I think they really believed that. This Gus guy, I didn't believe a word he said.
And there was a point where the concrete plant said, hey, look, you can connect utilizing our easement to the sewer.
Mhm.
And he's pretty much said no, because it would have cost him a little bit of money, but not nearly the amount that he would have had to do to be off the get-go and go up and around.
Yeah.
They were actually giving him that. He says that never happened. They say it did. Again, someone wrongs you, even if they try and make it right later, if you don't have that mindset, you're going to think, oh, they're trying to get one over on me again. They're going to
Yep.
screw me again. So I think he just let too much play in his head.
Absolutely. Ace is asking what documentary we watched, and I just looked it up. It's called Tread. It came out in 2019, and I think it's free on YouTube. I think that's where we watched it, but it's also on Netflix, I believe.
I thought we watched it on Netflix.
It's called Tread.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. No, I think we watched it on YouTube. I really think we did. Either way, I'm sure you'll be able to find it.
Salacious, I agree with you. If he would have been married, his wife would have most likely said, "You gonna do what?"
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
what happened after that would have been either, let's do this, let's ride together, kind of Bonnie and Clyde style, or would have called the cops and said, "My husband's lost his shit." So
I don't know what I would do if, I mean, I'd hold the concrete or the thing in place so you could
weld it.
weld it. Yeah,
I appreciate that.
probably. I mean, because if they're doing all that to Marv, like if they were doing that to you, they would also be doing it to me.
Correct.
If we're married, right?
But he didn't have someone to bounce off of him.
Yeah.
The other side of it, the basic cognitive reasoning, like, okay, are we looking at this the right way? Are we looking at it objectively? And he didn't have that. So
exactly.
Everything in his head was the truth because that was how he was perceiving it. He wasn't being given an alternative viewpoint.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. All right, we're not going to take any calls today, guys, because our air conditioner is not working and it's really hot in this room, and we're going to get out of here now. So I'd like to thank you all for coming by. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for the donations today. I'm so thankful to everyone who watched today, who supports this channel, and I'll have another episode for you next week, Sundays, 4:30. And follow MrZed on Twitter, by the way. His link is in the description below. He also has a YouTube channel. He's made 3 videos so far. Maybe someday he'll make another one. You never know, but you'll know if you hit subscribe and the bell. You'll know when he's going to live. So
correct.
Anything else you want to plug?
No.
He's like, no. Please don't follow me. Please leave me alone.
Now, when I do get it back up and running, it's going to be mainly local heroes. It's going to be Medal of Honor type stuff. And if I make any adjustments off of that, it'll all be in there. So
links in the description below. Hit the like button on your way out, please. It helps the algorithm. Once this is posted as a video, once we're done being live, if you want to go in and do some comments, that also helps. I appreciate you all, and we will see you next time, next Sunday, 4:30. See you then. Bye.
Needed a new track of land. I used to dig the Simpsons, man. Bumping Biggie, Pop, Smash Mouth, and Simple Plan. No scrubs for the crease in my pimples, damn. From the south streets of southeast Michigan, hitting shuffle till I settled on a different jam. And when a dime won't do, a better nickel can. And let me tell you, when I used to dig them Simpsons, man. A funny thing about time, you can't get it back. A tight grip, but it rips the jacket. Slight lisp with a mix of traffic. You see about me, like Mr. Glass, always wished I was a whiz at graphics. Take me back to the past where the hits were massive. You can hear Gladys Knight and the Pips on plastic. Misfit molasses. Delete my contacts just so I can stick to glasses. Feel that skipped out, so I miss the classics. Aristotle of the bottle, Seneca of the sinful action, senator of the simple maxim. I swear for a skillful Saxon, I'm still relaxing. Who wanna take a dip in the mind sauce, making up for the time lost, forgetting all my past was when I sign off. Crime bribe, crime rib, Agent Smith, crime boss, popping red pills till my mind's off, mind's off. First Florida man. First Florida man. Endo de Soto. First Florida man. First Florida man was Hernando de Soto. Won't you so loco? Show off your photos, throw out your Twinkies, throw up your ho-hos, tuck in them pinkies. Them shits a no-no. The first Florida man was Hernando de Soto. Brought to my attention by the man with the mojo. My 8 subscriber, I'm a bagoso. Jump in them sinkies and dump them mimosos. The first Florida man was Hernando de Soto. First Florida man was Hernando de Soto. First Florida man was Hernando de Soto. Threw up that blue pill, moved to a new track. I slew the foothills of that voodoo sap. Microfiche tape decks, I'll sift through that, cause I'll do anything to get the old Simpsons back. Give me the news that make my mood react. I'll swim through the sewer just to make it to the truth intact. And you can shine up that voodoo with new shellac. I'll still do anything to get the old Simpsons back. Imagine thinking Karl Marx is new school Klingon like Huzu. They welcome the ways they can bring on the boots, dude. Declare a major, they get paid to pollute you. Self-ashamed neighbors never gaze when they scoop you. I wonder how we fight it. The sixth step is never enter in my tent uninvited. The fifth step is produce, no skills is no use. Fourth step, community preference is unity. Third step is nation, it's somewhat location, mostly relations, that's the situation. Next step, family, patriarchal sanity. Safe under the canopy, ain't a place for anarchy. First step, I just got to say it, no showboat. Step back and soak up the logos. First Florida man, Endo de Soto. First Florida man was Hernando de Soto. Won't you soak logos, show off your photos, throw out them Twinkies, throw up your ho-hos, tuck in them pinkies, them shits a no-no. The first Florida man was Hernando de Soto. Got to my attention by the man with the mojo. My 8th subscriber, Yama Bagoso. Jump in them Sinkies and dump them mimosos. The first Florida man was Hernando de Soto. Hernando de Soto. The first Florida man was Hernando de Soto. Got to my attention by the man with the mojo. My 8th subscriber, Yama Bagoso. First Florida man was Hernando de Soto. First Florida man was Hernando.